So, John, always a bonus. No Mark Flanagan for the next hour. Which,
great. Great.
Yeah, not really. We've never really missed him that much. Some people don't notice when he's not here. And we are joined by Danika Priim, the Leeds prop. Danika, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. You?
Very good. Thank you so much for coming on. Wilco, you've been in Newcastle all weekend. How was it? How was Magic? Any stories? I mean, on the pitch was great, wasn't it? The Catalan story was incredible.
Yeah, incredible. I mean, the quality of the games on the Saturday was... I think I spoke to a lot of people and it's just what the game needed. You know, some real jeopardy and tension and some huge results. And I tend to agree, actually, because I've been covering a lot of games and watching a lot of games, and there's not really anything that's got me turgid. Do you know what I mean? And it was the first few games that's really got me going and feeling like, right, these are quality games. The atmosphere up there. Have you been to the Magic weekend, Will? Because you did the one in Liverpool, didn't you?
Yeah. I've been to one at St James's. I think St James's stands out at the top, don't you?
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I mean, Newcastle it's a party city anyway, isn't it? So, on the Sunday morning, I had a walk round, grabbed a coffee, and it was just like Dawn of the Dead, but rugby league version.
That's so the best bit about it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a zombie apocalypse, and there's three Castleford fans walking towards three Hull KR fans in a doorway. It's great.
Nodding
I loved it.
and not speaking.
Yeah,
grunting to each other.
Danika, are you a big fan of Magic?
Yeah, huge. I went to the one in Manchester, and then I've done a couple up in Newcastle, and it didn't go up this time because we were meant to have a game on Sunday. You know, match prep and all would have finished late and got back late, and then our game got cancelled, and just enjoyed the spectacle that it was on the television. It's a shame, but it was definitely like you say, it's what the game needed. If you weren't a league fan, it was definitely entertaining, wasn't it? And edge of the seat stuff. So what a wicked weekend, but gutted not to have been up there.
Yeah. Look, Danika, you are talking to us really on your... Is it first day back at school? You're a teacher. Is it first week back at school at least, isn't it?
Well, yeah, first is second day. The first day is always a bit of training, sitting around. Second day, we've kind of had to do a bit more, speak to a few more parents and kids. But yeah, just gone back to it. So back to the grind.
So for those who don't know, full-time gig teaching, what do you teach?
I am a maths and PE teacher, which couldn't be any more end of the spectrum, could it?
No, I'm a qualified PE teacher. That doesn't make sense.
No, I've maths by chance. So I'm a qualified PE teacher, taught PE, mainstream schools, now work in an alternative provision. So kids with social, emotional health, mental health needs, those who can't really access mainstream. So it's a little bit tougher than your normal gig, I'd say. And then basically with that kind of stuff, it's more of the kids will learn from people they relate to or people they'll get on with, and do you fancy teaching a bit of maths? And I was like, it was honestly my least favourite subject at school. I think I sat my GCSE maths 3 times to get my genuinely, and it's not. I've got 2 degrees. I'm not stupid. I just couldn't be bothered at school, so I didn't practice. And here I am now head of maths. Just put 18
head
kids
of maths,
through GCSE
not just a maths teacher. Head of maths.
head of maths. Double F.
Head of blagging it, pulling out my arse and pretending to know what I'm doing.
I mean, to be fair, it's one of those. I hope none of the students are watching, but do you remember, Wilco, we had Ryan Hall on the other week, and he's a maths freak, isn't he? He's like a sort of beautiful mind, Russell Crowe, maths boffin, just naturally gifted at maths, but loves it. And I'm the same as you at school. I just couldn't think of anything worse than maths, because I even said to them back then, before the days of the iPhones, I was like, I've got some shit sort of Samsung thing with the aerial that pulls out. It's got a calculator on it. That's all I need. It's all I'm ever going to need for maths. And it's rung true to this day.
But some
Wilco, you run a business.
Really
you don't know how to do maths.
Yeah, I do. I love maths. I work in fractions all the time. I love really long divisions. That's my weekend. Sometimes, where it's like 5 or 6 lines, Will, and you just, I get excited. Long division.
There's rows and rows of numbers.
Algebra. I love algebra. I've always loved algebra.
5 or 6 lines. That's
life is algebra, kind of isn't it? I think.
It is, yeah. Well, I think some people take to maths, don't they? Some people love it and take to it, and other people it's like an alien language. And I think you've got to be a really certain type of person. I think if anything, Danika, the fact that you failed a few times means that you're probably in a good position to teach people how to learn the subject.
Oh, it's something like that. But I'm like, the kids are like to me, where will you ever use this? And you've got to be honest, you're probably not. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to get you a GCSE qualification. So I'm going to teach you what you need to know to get your grade to move on. Like everything in life.
That's a cool way of looking at it. Yeah, that's how the teacher should have explained it.
It's the honest way, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's the honest way.
Yeah. Look, so
I'm a prop in rugby league. It screams volumes.
And that doesn't go together, does it? Maths, prop, rugby league, PE teacher. I mean, when you everyone was asked that cliche question, why teach? And I think I've seen a few interviews with you, Danika, from years gone by, and you said you were kind of inspired by your PE teachers when you were a kid at school. Is that the big reason why you wanted to go into that?
Yeah, I was the kid in school that I wasn't naughty. I was just a question.
No, you were naughty.
I was a bit of an arse, right?
People who say they're not naughty, I wasn't naughty, but I wasn't very good
as such.
No, I'd like to say I was more philosophical. So you're not allowed to wear bracelets, so you're not allowed to wear a certain jumper. And I'm like, how's it affecting my education? Give me a reason and I'll take it off. And they were like, just take it off, it's the code.
So you were smart ass, Danika.
I've got 3 brothers. It was a necessity in life. I was the only girl in a very male family, so smart arse or arsehole, either or is that's how I rolled. But yeah, so yeah, I was in every possible school team. Didn't have the greatest, like that cliche thing, didn't have the greatest upbringing. So staying at school and doing every sport.
What does that mean? Because I've heard you say that before, and I don't want to pry, but what does that mean? Tell us a bit more about not having the best upbringing.
So I was a classic kid. Parents split up when I was really young. Massive, like we were in poverty, a proper poverty-stricken family. I got a job when I was 11, 12, just so I could contribute to like the income. I'd get £10 a day for working 10 hours in a dog kennels.
11 years old.
Yeah. So it was like, but the thing is, it's like that at the time, that was just what you did. You didn't. Now, because I work with kids in that situation, I'm a bit like, oh, that's not right. But at the time, yeah, I worked 10 hours a day on a Saturday in a dog kennels. And at the end of every Saturday, he gave me 10 quid. £1 an hour to wash out dog kennels. And
it sounded a lot like the Monty Python sketch, that, Danika, doesn't it? Look, shirts in the 4 Yorkshiremen sketch. We worked for £10 for 10 hours, and then we got cut in half and had to eat a cupful of hot gravel.
Pretty much, yeah. The dogs got fed better than I did.
Where did that 10 quid go then? That just went into the family pot?
Wasn't even the family pot. My mum was an alcoholic, so she wasn't even in the house. It was more, I've got 3 brothers, and maybe the maternal instincts kicked in. I've not got any kids, so I don't really have any, but just food, bread, milk, and then if I was lucky, I saved up 1997. I saved up £12 to buy the Titanic VHS tape so I could have it myself.
It's a great film.
It is a great film. Ridiculous. Do you know what? I had a conversation with someone the other day about this. Someone was saying that DiCaprio's great. The only one I said he's never done a bad film. They're like, well, Titanic. I was like, Titanic is not a bad film.
It's a classic.
Titanic's above Wolf of Wall Street.
Do you know what? Watching it back now, I don't rate it that much, and it's a bold statement that as well, because Wolf of Wall Street is pretty decent. But I think I detest Titanic now.
It's still an epic film. Yeah. But, I mean, look, you said three brothers there. That's in itself is a challenge, isn't it? Yeah. So my oldest brother was a rugby player. I think he was in the Leeds Rhinos academy pre Jonesy's era, so he must be 41 now. And at 16, 17, smashed his knee on a post and shattered his kneecap, and then never played again. So has always been a mad fan. So he's the reason I play rugby league. So when I was in year 5 or 6, so 10, 11, he came from high school, being a bit of a bad lad himself. He didn't get any qualifications. And he used to come and coach my primary school team. And then, so I'm 37 next weekend, so I'm not a spring chicken at all. So back in them days, there wasn't a women's or girls team. We're 37, don't say that. We're both 37.
I'm still playing though.
It's a great age. It's a great age. It's a great age. You've got so much to look forward to.
And you're doing really well. You're playing great.
I don't know about that. I don't know about. Just got over last weekend, and I'm about to play again this weekend. But yeah, he came and coached me in year 6. Me and my friend Amy were the 2 girls that the government were like, girls and boys can't play together. And they were like, oh, watch these 2 girls play. And we were absolutely kicking the crap out of the boys. And that's when they extended the playing age for girls up to like 13s. But then there was no team. So I stopped playing when I got to high school and took up classical ballet because obviously they fit in.
What
the So then danced. Yeah, because my brothers all played football and rugby. So what can I do that's going to piss them off the most?
Oh no, we can't move past the classical ballet part without going into that a bit further. But explain.
Yeah, so I went to dance lessons. My teacher at school was a dance teacher, so gave me the lessons for free. She took me on a ring. So classical ballet, tap, modern, jazz. Wow. Did that and competed in dance competitions from 11, 12 all the way up to 17. At 17, I danced at Royal Albert Hall, Disneyland Paris. Loads of like big theatres, like full showgirl style.
Incredible.
Leotards.
But is that like? I mean, is it like swimming? Is it like what John's missus did? Is it's kind of 17, you're at your peak, and you're old at 18 for a classical ballet dancer, but like
Yeah,
swimming.
I was also not the right shape or size. Always been a little bit. I'm 5'8", 5'9". Never been a slight girl. Yeah, taller than most people. But never been slight, so it was kind of like you need to either move on, and then went to uni and it's like, what can I do that is not ballet, because I lost kind of not dancing. I did everything I've done all sorts in dancing, taking me around. I've danced in Hong Kong, Disneyland. So I've done loads of it. Went to university, did a sports science and medicine degree, and thought, what can I do that's going to be social? So joined the rugby union side, which is what I used to like tackle my brothers and play around with them. So it was kind of just like a bit of a wild journey. But yeah, that's how I got back into rugby. Was that not
sinning in the eyes of your brothers? Joining the rugby union team, having grown up going to Headingley with them.
Yeah, proper working class family. So I was a rah-rah. Who do you think you are? You're a rah-rah. And I was like, look, there was the closest rugby league team was probably like St Helens or somewhere that way. There was a Liverpool or something like that. There was nowhere anywhere near. And I'd always, like from 96, remember going and having a £10 season ticket to Leeds Rhinos for under 16s. So season ticket, and that was your entertainment with all my friends, whether you liked rugby league or not. £10 for the whole season, you had a free ticket all the time, and if you weren't using it, you'd pass it to a friend.
Well, look, during that time when you had a season ticket, I think you went with your brother. I don't know, one of your 3 brothers, and he told you, you were kind of like, oh, this is cool. I'd love to play here one day, and he was like, absolutely not, love, not a chance.
I watched Barry McDermott
because you're a woman.
punch somebody. Yeah, I watched Barry McDermott punch somebody, and I thought it was the coolest thing I'd seen, because there was a big fight. Everyone was like cheering. I was like, what? We're allowed to cheer fighting? Wicked. This is brilliant. I was like, I want to do this. I want to play one day. And he was like, oh, no, that's wicked, but you'll not play here. This is Headingley Stadium. Women will not, there's no teams around here. You'll never play here. And I was like, oh, gutting. But it was just the given. Like, I kind of understood like that was the way life was at that point. And what my brother said at that time was gospel. So, but he said that, and that must have been the truth. So yeah, it was a bit of a, but yeah, Barry McDermott was, I thought I want to be a bit like him because he seems a bit of a psycho. Yeah. And my brother got really excited by the punching, and I was allowed to like tackle him and kick him around a bit. So yeah, that was it, and that just a given. That was it. I'm never going to play at Headingley, but I'll go and I'll watch and I'll vicariously play through the guys and the men and stuff like that.
And all those years later, when you did, it was that the first text message you sent out?
Yeah, and I remember. Obviously, signing for Rhinos was massive anyway. And I remember being like, "Oh, Carl, I'm signing for Rhinos," and he was like, "Oh, no, you're not. No, you're not." And this is just coming off the back of a World Cup, so he was a bit like, "You've just stolen my thunder. You just have to do everything better than me, don't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly right. A younger sister's prerogative, just to do everything better than you can do it." And then, so after coming off the World Cup, I was like, "I'm signing for Leeds Rhinos," and he was like, "Shut up." And then we got wind that we were playing at Headingley it was the 26th of May 2018. I was like, "I'm playing at Headingley," and he was like, "You're not," and I was like, "I'm playing at Headingley." And like, I think it's still, I've played in a World Cup, but to this day, walking out in Headingley is probably one of my proudest rugby moments ever.
Yeah.
Ever. And it was one of those like...
Meanwhile, Carl was there in the crowd with another girl just going, "You'll never play here, love. You'll never play here."
Yeah. Pretty much it. No, he's got...
This is a one-off.
Like, so socially awkward. He's so socially awkward, but I remember his stood there going, I told her she would. And I was like, shut up. Shut up.
Tried to claim.
That's not the case. Yeah, I taught her how to play. I was like, no, you taught me how to survive. I only reason I can tackle and scramble is because of you.
Just rewinding then, what, switching codes from uni into league. I think you did that in 2015, obviously, at uni. So what's that like? You're playing prop for Leeds University. I think you played at Twickenham, didn't you, for Leeds University?
Yeah, we can't say Leeds Uni. I was Leeds Met.
Leeds Met,
like
sorry.
Saying,
Leeds
it's
Met.
like saying Hull FC and Hull KR.
Yeah. It's like people who say I went to Oxford. Yeah, I went to Oxford. In bracket, Brooks.
Exactly that, yeah. I'd rather be a Polly, is the old famous song.
I'd rather be a Polly.
But I mean, switching codes is one thing, Danika, but switching codes when you're a prop, I mean, they're not easy transitions, are they?
No, so I started at prop at Union and then played at uni. We went to Twickenham 3 times in the Bucks University Championships final, which was just wicked because you think at that point. And I played alongside Vicky Fleetwood and Emily Scarrett, that are all big names in the England lineup now. Like, I think Skaz is like the face of women's rugby union, and Adidas. And like, I've got some stories and some videos about you, pal, but as you all do. But they were the girls that I kind of learnt rugby union from. And we're on the kind of England fringes, but it wasn't that big at the time. They weren't professionally contracted or anything like that. But I thought, this is wicked. And gradually moved from prop to second row. Had a little stint in the back row at 8, which is very similar to a 13, a bit more ball playing. And then got into the Yorkshire side, then captained Yorkshire the following season. Then got into the North of England side and was on the, like what you call the 44, which is basically they get 44 players to trial for England. You all play each other in teams. But then I snapped my ligament in my ankle and was back on, like, this is uni. I don't want to take rugby too seriously. I'm enjoying uni. I'm enjoying having the social crack. And basically rocking up on a Sunday for West Park Bramhope when I joined the community club, and still being a little bit worse for wear from the night before and not having any kind of worries about it. Do you know what I mean? And I'd seen the 2013 World Cup for the Rugby League women were over here, and I was like, I've got a few friends that I know that are playing in it, so I'll go and have a look and and see what it's about. And then 15 got a phone call. It was a really weird phone call from Chris Chapman, who was the England coach at the time for Rugby League, and he said, I've been watching you play. I was looking at you for 13, but obviously you hurt your ankle. But how do you fancy playing rugby league? And by this point, I developed this newfound. I've always been a Rhinos fan, but I was a rah-rah. I was playing rugby union. I was pretty good at it. Can't go onto the dark side. I'd been asked a couple of times, can you just jump in and play rugby league and fill up numbers? I was like, no, I don't think I'm fit enough. This whole getting back 10 metres every time you have a tackle, shut up, it's ridiculous. And so Chris Chapman rang me up and he was like, I've been watching you. I was like, no idea about the kind of context of who he was or what he was ringing for. And I was like, no, I don't want to play rugby league.
He just rang you and said, Danika, I've been watching you. And you didn't know who he was.
I was like, you're creep.
That's fine.
But it was through, he was a partner of somebody I worked at a school with once as part of a coaching job. It was a real weird, by chance that he had my number or had even seen me or heard about me. One of those, like, I'm not into fate and whatever else, but it was one of those right name, right time, right place type of weird combinations. And I think the school I was working for, the lads had got into a rugby under 15s rugby league final, and he was there, and I was just chatting to him weirdly about it. But he just rang me up and he said, how'd you fancy converting? I was like, that'd be so ridiculous. Like, no. And he was like, I've been thinking about the 2017 World Cup. And I was like, he's like, it's in Sydney. I was like, right, talk to me, tell me a bit more about this. And that, as fickle as it sounds, that's exactly why I said, what do you need me to do? And he was like, join the local community club. So I joined Stanningley, which was, at the time, there wasn't a Super League, it was just, they were in the top league with like the 4 top teams. It's close, it was easy, it was by school, it worked for training because we trained Mondays and Wednesdays. Union training was Tuesday, Thursdays. So it all seemed just to fit in. I was like, yeah, I'll give it a bash. So switched over, realised pretty soon that I thought I was quite fit, and in fact, I wasn't. I thought I could tackle and run a ball in. I couldn't. Like, you have this perception of rugby league, or rugby league have a perception of rugby union, but yeah, it definitely hit a lot harder converting over. But yeah, picked it up pretty quickly. My strength is running the ball in, and as soon as I learned I could run the ball in, get tackled but not lose it, because in rugby union, as soon as you hit the deck, you have to give the ball away. And I thought, this works pretty well for me, actually. I'm quite a hard runner. I can carry 3 or 4 people at a time in a tackle. It works quite well. I'm quite successful. Second season at Stanley, can you be captain? And I was like, yeah, I still don't know the rules, but wicked. And then June 2015, made my England debut. Just like that's the initial call was February 15. And June 15.
I love that admission there. I don't know the rules, but there we go. I've got the captain's armband.
Yeah. I don't think I know them all now, if I'm honest.
Wilco, did you have those sort of perceptions about union and stuff? I mean, you're pretty open-minded. Were those stigmas with union there with you?
Well, I thought it was really interesting. Eddie Jones featured on Sky Sports the other night when I was covering one of the games, and I find the biases between both sports really interesting, and I think both sports have got like an insanely warped sense of the other.
Massive misconceptions, isn't it, about everything?
Yeah, but it goes both ways, right? So
yeah.
We were trying to dig Eddie Jones out. Well, Eddie Jones mentioned fitness, and then we've jumped on it. The sport has jumped on it, just so hard. They've bit so hard about it because we think our sport's fitter and quicker and better, and theirs is more technical and complicated and slower. And yeah, I've just never subscribed to it. I view it like 2 different sports completely. Will in the simple terms is I don't think there is any comparison between the two. Athletes can transfer between the two, certain athletes, but the game itself is completely different. It's just the requirements to play it are different. And I enjoy watching really good games of both, and I think really shit games of both are awful to watch as well. And that's just that's like sport will for football, isn't it? I imagine you watch an insane amount of football. You could watch a great game of football and love it, but there's some bad games out there, Will, that never see the light of day, isn't there?
Yeah, so many of them just wash over you now because you just, you're watching a game of football and it could be the shittest game of football and you're just almost in robot mode because you just see so much of it that even the good ones and the bad ones don't stand out because there's so much, and it's almost like over polluted football at the now, isn't it, at the moment, because particularly during the pandemic, it just was on every night, and you lose the quality. People lose the thirst for it, I think, after a while as well. I mean, look, Danika, fast forwarding a bit then from this meeting with Chris Chapman and so on, and then you go into league. You went to Bradford Bulls. You won the first Super League title, the first Women's Super League title with Bradford, and then England debut 2015, played at the World Cup in 2017. Then go to Leeds and you win a Super League title there. And I always think back to an interview that you did, or a quote I read somewhere where you said, I've gone from getting changed in a car, running onto the field, falling down all sorts of divots on a pitch, getting back in the car, getting showered at home, to, I think you referenced the game at Bolton, at the Reebok, whatever that stadium's called now. What's it called? University of Bolton Stadium. Playing in a triple header in the grand final against St Helens. Yeah,
it's mental. Like I think the girls now take it for granted a little bit, and I'm a bit not sad because I think the game's great where we are as a game, and I'm under no illusion that we are still really building, and I don't want it to rush too fast, and I don't want. Obviously, professional would be a great thing, but we've come so far in such a short space of time. So, 2015 we were drawing straws for who was going to wash the kit afterwards, and it's basically who could get in and out of the changing rooms quick enough to not get caught by the kit bag at the end. Walking out onto a field where the Sunday morning dog walkers had been, and just checking the field, or 15 minutes into a game thinking, can I get a new pair of shorts, please, because I've just landed in a load of crap. To not having to be to the point where we had just a field. We had some post protectors in a field and some markings. I remember playing once and honest to God, I think the grass was about 4 inches long, and it was just you just played for the sake of playing, and it was great. And I was thinking the whole time, I've always said to my friends and stuff, I'll represent England somehow. And this was kind of like a means to an end. So I was just like, oh, I'm just going to go for it. I've been quite privileged in uni because I was West Park Bramham, which is North Leeds, which is a very affluent area where we had 5 pitches, a 3G, a gym and everything to play in rugby league. And I was like, no, stick it out. There's an England cap here somewhere if you carry on. Yeah, to like, you know, post-match being who can down the pint the quickest for getting the man of the match. I've never lost one, by the way.
Good.
I probably only had 2 man of the matches in my whole career, but it's irrelevant. I've also down the pint the quickest twice as well. To some point just being, we've got no changing rooms, get changed in the car if you can. You know, it's wicked. And then with Bradford, when Bradford Bulls, we got a little bit more. So we got like a home ground, but it was Dudley Hill, which is just a community club. But at least there was a changing room. You didn't want to use the showers because you come out dirtier than when you went in. And we had somebody regularly taking the kit to a laundrette. So we thought we were like, honestly, we thought that step was massive in just a year. And then, the 2017 with Bulls, we played the Challenge Cup at Heworth in York. So again, another community, a little community club. And Tom Brindle, another guy from the RFL, ran as touch judges and ball boys. And honestly, we thought, we were like, oh, this is mad. And I think BCB Radio had come to cover it. And we were like, what? We've got coverage, you know, and we were super grateful at the time for what they are. But you think back now to where the coverage we get now, and you just think, we thought that in only 2017 was massive. And Bradford Bulls have got a really famous pub called the Top House that all the fans drink out of. And the Top House pub themselves had organised coaches for them to come and watch us play the Challenge Cup. We managed to get, it was about like 1,100 people there, fans there. But the Bradford Bulls fans, being as wicked as they are, had brought like the drums and the trumpets. And honestly, I remember standing at the end of the game, we'd won the Challenge Cup thinking, this is the best thing the women's game has ever had. But this community club with the one little grandstand, you know, that just about held 1,000 people in it. We've got the community radio covering it. We've got 2 men from the RFL who seem to care, you know, running as ball boys. And then we had this little banner at the front that said Challenge Cup winners. And the trophy can only be described as a Year 10 boys football championship trophy. You know, a school's, it was about this big. We managed to fit probably 2 pints into it to drink out of, type thing. You know, we thought that was wicked. And then the grand final they had at Manchester Arena, you know, early in the morning before the grand final at Old Trafford. And winning that, they all gave us free tickets and shipped us to Old Trafford to go stand in the stands dressed in our Bradford Bulls kit with this, again, another equally as impressive trophy. And this is all built up to the World Cup, you know, so we're thinking we're moving strides anyway because we get to train as an international squad once every 6 weeks. You know, that's triple the amount we'd had before. We've now got big venues for the grand final and the you know, the Challenge Cup final. We're being taken to Old Trafford as guests. I got taken, I think, because it was a 2021 like launch kind of bid. So I remember meeting Carl Hall from Doncaster, and I was put on his table, and thinking, I don't really know who this guy is because I'd not been in rugby league really. And he was like, yeah, I'm from Doncaster and I'm bidding to have Doncaster host some of the games. And I was like, oh, so I'm here to talk about the Rugby League World Cup for 2021 on behalf of the RFL. And they've given me these corporate tickets, you know, and we're getting all this meal and we're walking around. There's people from all sorts of councils that want to host, you know, World Cup games. And I'm like, oh, I must be moving pretty well here. Dressed in my England jumper and thinking, oh, people are asking me questions about a World Cup that I've not been to yet and is in 4 years time, you know, at the time. And I was like, this is mental. This is crazy. Little did I know, basically, there's about four or five of us from England that were just essentially pawned out to put on tables to fill, you know, and the kind of, let's say, token kind of women's thing. But at the time, we thought that was wicked, you know, and honestly thinking the game's massive. We're growing loads of, and then so my first England appearance, 2015 June, I paid £300 for the privilege to go play for England, to fly out to France.
What did that get you?
It got me a week in a motel.
Yeah.
The flights and a week in a motel, a bit of England stash, and a week off school, unpaid.
I mean, that is crazy, isn't it? It's like a fan paying for an
Yeah.
experience or something, isn't it? It is mental when you look at it like that.
I think looking back now, and I laugh at myself because the girls who are, training for England or could have lined up for the World Cup this year, who are going to get paid, who are training every weekend or every other weekend at least. I kind of wish they'd, and like I'm not a stalwart of the game. I came, only 2015. It's not long ago, but I just think back now and I think, what did you do? What the hell did you do? And I was that desperate to play for my country that I paid for the privilege of it. And we had one shirt that we had to get washed and reused for the games as well. We got to keep it, but it had both dates sewn into the badge at the front, so we could use it for both games.
So Danika, I'm interested there. You said at the start, you've really accurately laid out like the timeline of the development of the game, and the women's game is exponentially growing, isn't it? In the amount of attention it gets, in participation, in everything. But you said something really interesting. You said, "I just hope it doesn't move too quickly." And I just wonder what you mean by that. What does that look like? What's the pitfalls of it moving too quickly in your eyes?
A couple of things really. So like I think my biggest fear is some of the younger girls, or maybe the newer girls, are a little bit privileged, for want of a better word. Like I'm old school. And so take Caitlin Beavers, for instance, who isn't at all, but Caitlin Beavers got into the Leeds Rhinos senior squad at 16 from nowhere, was phenomenal talent, was scoring tries, was running rings around people. The same year she went and was the first ever female referee at Wembley for the boys' schools final, and was a key figure in us winning the Challenge Cup and the league at the time. And I remember she just went from this young girl who were like laughing at, taking under our wing, trying to be like, oh, we can't really have socials with you, you're still 16. I'm thinking, I teach girls your age. So, on a Tuesday, Thursday, I'm, marking kids' work. And then on 3 hours later, I'm having a joke with the same age. It was really weird. And I remember her coming through the community game at girls, but then her first taste of senior rugby league was Leeds Rhinos, and getting all of the privileges that the men get apart from the money. So we get kit, we get physio, we get therapists, nutrition, strength and conditioning. She's gone from playing at Dewsbury Moor to having everything you could possibly want, and she doesn't have an idea of how far the game's grown, and she's not, but she's the first one to say.
Why I was interested in you saying slowing it down is because, say, Caitlin's experience, is that not the way that you would want it to be for a young athlete? Or I don't necessarily think that's true. I'm old school like yourself. Like I used to get on a bus with 12 Budweiser, sit at the back, don't speak to anybody. I'd go to Whitehaven, work into, all these places. But do we not want it to be where the first experience of elite sport is exceptional for these young athletes, for the young women who get involved in the game?
Yeah, but then the biggest problem for Caitlin is, for her age, well, for mine anyway. So like you talk about, so this summer festivals have come back. We're not paid to play. We're not paid to train. We don't get any privileges apart from, like, my massive privilege is playing in a Leeds Rhinos shirt. Cliche, cheesy, whatever you want to call it. But I don't like to use the word sacrifice because I make a choice. But I make a choice every weekend to not go out with my friends. I've missed weddings. I've missed several festivals. So how do you build the commitment, and how do you build that level of being an elite athlete without the privileges? So what they want from the women's game at the minute is for us to compete against St Helens, or to keep up the morals and the values of Leeds, is we have to train. So we have our 2 training sessions a week. We also need to train 3 or 4 times in a gym that we get given a program for. It's all planned for us, so it's easy. We then have to make the choice of, do you go out on a Saturday night with your friends at 18, 19, 20, which is the norm, or the girls that are at uni, do you go and have fun on a Wednesday night, which is the social night, or do you choose to think about your body as an athlete, but without any privileges for that, so without the monetary value? So how do you make that transition from building the game? So you either go really quickly, bam, here is a salary, here is supplements, I want you to train and perform because you've been paid to do so, versus at the minute, don't go to that festival, don't go out on Wednesday night, don't go out on a Saturday or a Friday.
Is the tracksuits, the kit, and you know, all the privileges that you do get, is that in some way seen as compensation for your time? But in real terms, it's not, is it, Danika? Like, it's nowhere near enough compensation for your time.
Yeah, so we've had a couple of girls that have come, not just to Leeds, but I've seen Huddersfield or Saints or Wigan, and they've come because it's the Wigan badge or the Saints badge or the Leeds badge. They get the kit. They've played, and they've played for Leeds Rhinos, which is it's wicked, isn't it? Because as a girl or a woman, like if you followed rugby league, you want to do that, but then all of a sudden you realise the commitment that's needed to maintain that standard, like, and we lose players. We lose players because we've got 3 girls that travel from Newcastle to Leeds, which is a 2.5 hour journey one way, so 5 hours just to train on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and there's one girl that wants to play a bit of rugby union at a university. She wants to go out on a Wednesday. So for me, it's not so much I don't want the jump. I want the progression to be careful, and I want the progression to be. We're not a sport where can be paid. We don't get the endorsements. We don't get the sponsorship. We don't get the funding yet. So we can't offer the girls anything, and nor should we yet until we build our own profile. But to build the profile, we've got to have the commitment. So where's the fine line between growing a sport really nicely and making sure people appreciate it and not just play for the badge or not just play for I play for Leeds Rhinos versus I love playing rugby league. I don't know. It's old school, isn't it?
That's the difference, Danika, isn't it? For me as a male rugby league player, Will as well, is although I wasn't paid as a young athlete, and it was easy for me to commit because ultimately I knew the potential for me to earn was there. Whereas, the difference is if you're endlessly asking people to commit and be disciplined and be excellent, but you'd only do that for so long if it's not going anywhere really. If it's not fruitful for you commercially. I think there's a really interesting piece in women's sport world. Women's football's going crazy, isn't it? So I think for rugby league, the women's game is a huge source of growth, but this brings up the dilemmas, doesn't it, of how quickly we do it.
I was about to say, when you look at this, where we're recording this now, the weekend just gone, and the WSL and what's happening with Barclays getting involved with that and the women's football, and that's been around for years and years and years as well, and there has been a slow transgression to do what they're doing right now. But that opening weekend, most of the teams playing in the men's stadiums, with crowds there, with the proper kits, the same third kits and away kits and everything as the men. And I guess it's hand in hand, isn't it? Because all those things that you've mentioned, unless that happens, the less likely you are to be taken seriously. And I say that for want of a better phrase, but to be taken seriously by men as well, by the people who have stuck those stigmas and roadblocks in front of you all this time. Because I imagine you've had quite a few wanker statements over the years. I'm quite interested to hear some of them from when you first started in league and the ones that still stand in your way right now. So,
I think when I did my first ever player appearance type dinner speech was at a Lord Taverner's event, which is cricket. So I got up and do this balloon debate, and I just looked at, and I sat next to Guy Mowbray. So me and Guy Mowbray were talking at this event, and I'm like, I'm not a football fan, but Guy Mowbray is in the football world, don't you? So I'm like, right, this is pretty big. I'm stood next to Guy Mowbray. It's 2018, and I stood up and I just was like, right, there's a room of 1,200 men basically here. I need to lay this on the line. I need to find my audience. I need to find my feet. I was like, right, 5 misconceptions you've all got about me right now. 1, I'm not a lesbian just because I play rugby league. We're not all lesbians. There's a few, don't get me wrong. But it's not the blanket statement. Yeah, there's a few. But actually, the ratios have dwindled out now. We're not as diverse as we used to be.
Oh, okay. You have to have some diversity training.
2, I don't strap my boobs down. We just wear a sports bra. 3, we play full contact. We play full minutes, and we play on a full-size pitch. And my all-time favourite, to break a few hearts out there, half the girls don't even shower after a game. So get that out of your head. There's no shower scene. And if they do,
that's disgusting. What do they do? They just go straight home.
Or they shower in their shorts and the sports bra. There's nothing exciting about a shower, and it's generally the younger ones that don't.
Hey, the guys
shower.
do that as well. Flash was telling me a lot of the guys now, Wilco, there's no cocks out in the showers. It's like there's a lot of little shorts on.
No. Yeah, it's pants. Lads wear pants.
It's much more judgmental out there these days, though, isn't it?
Seems a good place to sort of move on and talk about the Super League playoffs, which of course are underway. The final at Headingley, October the 10th. Carl will be there again, won't he? He'll find a whole load of different women in the crowd. You'll never play here. You never play here, girls. This is just
none of you. None of you will play here.
But that's exactly how he sounds as well.
I mean, look. So you've got Leeds, obviously your team, Danika. You got Saints. You got York City Knights. You got Wigan Warriors, Cass. The 5 teams competing for the trophy. I mean that is as good as it gets, isn't it now? And all those moments that you've said they've been building up to these situations where you're televised, you've got a big audience. It's still moving in the right direction, and no more so than now. Yeah,
it's wicked. So like a massive the National Lottery have funded us to have this elite status, so therefore we can play, so we can get tested, we have the COVID testing, we can have everything that we need to have to play, and that's all come from the funding, because otherwise nobody's got it. It's just, we know what rugby league's like anyway. It's dwindling in terms of financial backing. So to have the National Lottery put that on and to give us this the coverage, and it's massive now to have the break. We had the 10 teams to start off with, and maybe 10 was a bit too many to have, because at Leeds we've been phenomenally lucky with how that we're supported. We've, from the word go, we've been treated as well as we can be treated by them, in terms of we are part of the Leeds Rhinos umbrella. So if you walk into the review room upstairs in Leeds, it says men's, women's academy. Like, we are part of that umbrella, and that's a wicked feeling, because when Kev was there, they had Kevin saying, this is our club, these are the morals, this is what our badge means, this is what you have to abide by. So it's always felt a massive privilege to have the Leeds badge, but to now be in these Super League playoffs, and we've got everything we need. Saints have come on board, Wigan are stepping up, obviously York are now offering monetary value to the girls, which is making it just built their squad and made them strong. At the start of the season we beat them 60-odd-0, and now we've just beat them 14-4 because they've recruited, because they've got the money to do that and offer it. So it shows, and they are probably going to compete in the top 3 as well. But it's wicked because we've played at all sorts. I've played at Headingley, I've played at the Totally Wicked Stadium, we've played at Wigan, and just to say that and have that kind of CV of stadiums is mental for me. And I know the girls are going to have loads more come the World Cup, and it's wicked. But the build up around it's huge. So the Saints and us kind of derby will, and I'm hoping that will be the final. Playoffs all go well, and I'm hoping that will be the big, because ultimately I reckon we are the top 2 teams, without sounding arrogant. But as far as results go, we are on paper the top 2 teams. So having Saints get behind the women like they have done, especially with them winning the Challenge Cup and sealing it from us this year, not over it, but it's fine. And
the one thing I found interesting as well, Danika.
No, I'm not. I hate losing.
I didn't know about this as well, but the Betfred Women's Super League South, which I know the guys have flirted with. I think I heard on the radio today about the Broncos, Wilco, sort of going back to being part-time, and regressing, and all those sort of experiments. And look what happened at Toronto, where you were, and New York, and all those things are just sort of falling by the wayside. But in the women's game, you've got Cardiff winning the Super League South. You've got teams from Bristol, Cornwall, London as well.
Devon,
it's so expansive for not only a minority game, men and women, but
so men's game kind of goes along, apart from Catalan, the men's game goes along the 62, doesn't it, like this? Whereas the women's is now, we actually cover such a massive range. We are probably...
Look, Danika, the future of rugby league and the growth of rugby league might well be in the women's game and in wheelchair rugby. In these transferable, bigger footprint, largely appealing to women all around the country to play it. Whereas because the women's game doesn't have a history, Will, and there's not like a huge amount of tradition, you can set up a club somewhere like Bristol and go, right, we're Bristol whatevers, and we're going to play. And people just, it's like, it's just fucking cool, isn't it? Whereas,
why not?
for a men's team, you go, we're setting up a club near Cumbria, and then you just get like 10 clubs with pitchforks and like burning torches coming running at you. Like, what are you doing? We played rugby league here for 125 years, and you're like, well, yeah, fine, but. So that's how I felt with Toronto. I felt every time the name of the club was mentioned, because it hadn't existed for 100 odd years and whatever, it just would never stood a chance. Whereas the women's game, it doesn't have that snobbery. We can just go, like, it can be anything. It could go anywhere, couldn't it? And that's
we're essentially
exciting.
an emerging sport still, aren't we? Emerging sport in the south, you know, and the areas that are not on the 62. So it's exciting and it's new and it's fresh and it's like a little bit rogue because women are playing rugby still. You know, you've still got that old school element, which is actually really attractive to the game, isn't it? It's different.
But then I guess, Wilco, you were probably guilty in the past through an inherited culture of making those sorts of statements 10, 15 years before you went to Toronto. The idea of, what? Canadians in rugby league? You know, you evolve and you grow and you develop, don't you? And you learn.
Yeah. I think I've always... It doesn't take... You don't have to be a rocket scientist to work out that a really clever expansion strategy was what rugby league needs, because quite simply, just anecdotally, like if you know the towns in which rugby league exists, they're not the most affluent towns. There's the supporter base was aging, visibly. I suppose at my time at Saints, we had a minute's silence every other week for a fan who died. It became just a repetitive, like the fans were dying like this, and I was thinking, well, look, this doesn't make sense, really, that we need a joined up approach to expansion. And I was dismissive. No, I wasn't dismissive of the women's game. I was just conscious that the men's game was really struggling to make ends meet. And I think I did a podcast with Jodie Cunningham, and I said, yeah, but for the women's game to be successful, it needs the men's game to be successful, because ultimately the pot that you're going to be paid out is going to be driven by the men's game. And do you know what, Will? I think I've changed my mind, as in I think potentially the women's game could be more profitable, commercially viable, more interesting to broadcasters, more interesting to sponsors, to blue chip companies, more interesting to schools, more interesting for enrichment at schools than the men's game. That's absolutely crippled by its history, that has its its heritage anchoring it down. Whereas the women's game, it feels new, like you said, this roguish sort of sense. I think that women's rights, and like I'm married to a really strong woman who opens my eyes to like things that have just been how they've been, and she doesn't stand for any shit. She won't stand for it. She just, you know what I mean? And it's all changing. Everything's changing. I just think the women's game's got an exciting part to play in the growth of rugby league. Look at women's football, Will. It is huge now, isn't it? Women's football's overtaken men's rugby league. People say, what's happened to rugby league? Yeah. Why would it be slipping down?
The women's football was from double headers, from strong men's double headers. And that's
exactly.
when we played, the triple header at Bolton, by the end of the game, we had 4,500 people watching. Now, whether we're not stupid, they weren't there to watch us, but the last 20, 30 minutes of our Challenge Cup final, we had 4,500 people, which means there's probably about 3,000 people there seeing women's sport for the first time. And that was because we got given the platform prior to the game. Like, we're not bothered about the standalone events. We'd rather come, and be a curtain raiser or a double header, whatever you want to. The proper diverse term is it's a curtain raiser, isn't it? I'm old school. But that's what it is, isn't it? Like, we get the early, Leeds Rhinos kick off at 7:45, but they open the gates at 5:30. 40% of attendance is women and children in spectators. That for us builds a game, and that's how the women's football is built.
But Danika, is it not about? It's about this next generation, isn't it? Which fits perfectly in with you, obviously being a teacher, and I'm quite interested because kids have no filter, and I think in the past you've said that kids have called you a beast. They've thought you're a man in a woman's body. All these sorts of things, which is probably quite amusing, less so than insulting, because They don't have a filter, kids, but that's the type of generation of people that you're trying to attract. To say you're in your twilight years on the pitch, but going forward, the next generation of women's rugby league players, because Wilco made that comparison about women's football. The WSL had a big kickoff this weekend. They've done it properly. Sky are showing the games properly. They're treating it like you would turn on and watch Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville there. You've got Caroline Barker in the studio. Karen Carney's been signed up as the main pundit. You've got Jackie Oatley on commentary. It's not just treated with a little afterthought of, and they're playing in the men's stadiums. Whether that's going to help them long term when they're not getting the crowds initially, it goes back to your point of not growing too quickly, because you don't want just empty, no atmosphere stadiums. You want those kind of 10, 12,000 there where you can try and fill it out and keep the noise, keep the atmosphere. But that is what it's for, isn't it? It's for those people now that you're teaching that are 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, because they should be the ones when they're in their 20s buying season tickets at these clubs. Yeah,
exactly. It's like people talking about the men's game, playing it in COVID. I was like, welcome to the women's game. That's how many people we play from.
Permanent COVID,
yeah. Actually, Dad, to be fair, Leeds Rhinos fans are really great, and we do get quite a few hundred coming up. But
such a disclaimer, Danika.
She's so on brand.
You chicken.
I've been told I'm a business, not a team. I say all the right words.
Yeah.
Thanks to Gary Hetherington many a time. I know what to do. But yeah, like I had a kid. Like I work in an alternative provision, so I'm not working with mainstream kids. I'm working with kids that even have less of a filter than kids in a normal school. So they will tell me black and white with every possible word under the sun what they think about me. And this kid one day turned around, he was like, "You just think you're fucking big time, don't you?" And I just went, "I reckon if you get pictures on Google, you're doing all right."
Yeah.
And he was like, came in the next day and he was like, "Miss, guess what?" And I went, "What?" He went, "You've got a Wikipedia page." And I just went, "I've got a what?" And he was like, "I'm telling everybody." And for every day for about the next 10 days, because you can edit Wikipedia, can't you?
Yeah.
My kids from school
we edit Mark and John's regularly. We change the height, the weight, all sorts of things.
I had the kids edited it. I think the kids took it in turns to edit my Wikipedia page every day for about 2 weeks.
Good things or bad?
Both. The favourite one was the fat neek. So I walked into school next day, I was like, "What is a neek? If you're going to call me it, tell me what it is." And they were like, "Well, we're not sure, it's a nerd and a geek." I was like, I'll take that.
Is that not getting the fucking naughty corner and don't talk to your teacher like that? That's what punishment. There's got to be some punishments here, Danika.
No, I mean, it's just I want to understand what it is. What is a neek?
Yeah, I'm like, I think, to be honest, I was like, shit, I'm old. I'm not cool anymore.
Shit,
like,
I'm a neek.
I don't know what you mean.
How did I end up being a neek? Damn it.
And they were like, "Miss, you teach maths." I was like, fair, I probably would have called me worse names than that anyway. But then today we had the parent review day, and it was just by chance. I was, and I don't really speak about rugby. The kids sometimes, like if I've got training or, and I'm staying school late, I might get changed at school and literally dash to training, because sometimes that's how it works. But one of the lads today he's only been in school for about, with COVID, he's only been there about 18 months, so he's quite new, socially not great, and he brought his mum in for a parent review, who had to bring his little brother in, and they were just sat at the side. I was like, "Oh, how you doing, fella?" How's your summer been, doing the stuff that you do. And as I walked away, he went, "Mum, she plays for Leeds Rhinos." Yeah. Before the summer he was like, "I fucking hate you, so," and then you think that, and I'm like, he might not watch rugby, or he might not. But he's turned around to his mum and kind of whispered, like, "Mum, she plays for Leeds." And I was that to me is better than having been recognised on the street by a fan, if you know what I mean. Like, honestly, it's so cliche and cheesy that that kid looks up to me, whether he says it to my face or not. Like, he thinks it's cool that I play for Leeds Rhinos. And I'm actually taking a group of kids to the Rhinos game next Friday. I've managed to get some tickets for them, and I'm taking about 10 kids down. And they were like, "Oh, miss, that's wicked. Thank you so much." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll take all the credit for this. It's fine." And they were like, Are we watching you?" And I was like, "No, I've got tickets for the men's." And they were like, "Oh, are we not come to see you play?" And I'm like, "Oh, you actually want to? That's." I don't play very long now. I'm a 37-year-old struggling prop. If I get 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I'm happy. But It's really
isn't it fascinating the way that kids think though, and you know this obviously far more than Wilco and I would, being involved with them every day like that. But I mean, I find kids fucking weird these days. I just don't understand them. I mean, particularly when you talk about, and we've talked about this loads on the podcast, John. But you know, kids of an age. I mean, I don't know. I've got nephews, nieces, whatever. Who, you know, 14, 15, 16. They spend all day with the face in some fucking weird game, playing. You know, immersed in. I just don't get it, you know, and we won't. We're old fuckers. We're not going to understand that. We're supposed to understand that. But you know, kids don't listen to the radio now. kids don't listen to the radio. You know, they don't listen to podcasts. So you know, how are they going to absorb these future sports? I'm of the old school thinking that, just like you said there, Danika, you're taking a whole bunch of kids to watch a game. You know, you get immersed in an experience at a young age, and it's a good experience, and you enjoy it for whatever reason. You know. You're going to go back. You're going to have fond memories of it. It's the same as if, you know, for example, the only people that might listen to 5 Live or to the radio, or when you hear Sports Report and you hear that music, is because you remember being in the car with your dad and you're listening to football. You know, generational experiences. That's going to help. But you can't rely on generational experiences to take those kids forward to immerse them in a sport, you know, like rugby league, like women's sport. Because I think you said, you know, kids at school, they're not watching. They're not just. It's not a go-to. They're not just watching women's sport, even at a young age. And the girls aren't. That's the more worrying thing. The girls aren't. The girls should be watching it.
Yeah, well, I think isn't there that old chestnut at the minute where they've just compared Cristiano Ronaldo's social media followings, and he has more followings than all of his 4 football teams or something ridiculous. And I think it's more these days that the kids follow players or a sports personality or a sports person rather than a team now. Like, so I could play for Stanley, I could play for Leeds Rhinos, I could play for England, you know, and the kids would follow me because I like to think they've got, you know, a bit of respect for me, and they like the fact that I still play and I train, and I've got quite a nice ethos about, you know, how I present myself as an athlete, or how hard I work, or what I eat, or whatever, on the most part. And like, they don't care about watching Leeds Rhinos men. They're watching Leeds Rhinos because they thought it was me, which is kind of more of a following thing, isn't it? So if I, like you say, like, all I need them to do is, you know, imagine if some of these kids go and watch, you know, like, Conrad Hurrell, how much of a fan's favourite is he? Just because he gets involved and he you know, he's a bit of a showman when it comes to the afterthought. And that's what the kids will be in. You know, we're going to be in the South Stand at Leeds Rhinos. We're going to be near the band. We're going to be singing the songs, or they're going to be here in the atmosphere. They're not going to care about what's going on the field. And it's more of that spectacle. You know, like Magic Weekend this weekend was an exciting weekend of rugby. And it's not about, nobody wants to watch the 80-minute games. They want to watch the last 6 minutes of the Catalan Saints game, don't they? Because Saints should have had that in the back. That's the exciting 6 minutes. And I think rather than having, you know, the experience of going to the rugby league game on Friday will be wicked for them. If you can show them snippets of exciting parts of games, or the bit of the biff, or the great break, or, you know, look at Morgan Gannon at 17 years old. Look at this kid, you know, absolutely running rings around old boys in the Super League. So I think for me, it's about picking out the moments for them, you know, and that's what, as a teacher, what you have to do. You have to get rid of the rubbish algebra and think about how can you make that little bit exciting, so they think about it, or think about it again, or learn, or revise it. And I guess that's what sport is, isn't it? Where's the drama? Where's the excitement? And how are we going to keep it exciting?
And I think as well, Will makes a great point about, like, online, you know, the fictional sort of world online is infinitely exciting, isn't it? Well, yeah. You know, you can be a sniper in a forest somewhere, you know, and it's vividly real, can't you? Or you can, I don't know what they do, build a city and then pretend you own a city or whatever. But that's really exciting, isn't it? Whereas the going and watching live sport, listening to the radio, Test Match Special, Will, listening to, you know, you said about the radio, that was me, you know, listening to these things. We've got to be careful, we've got to protect them. And a big challenge for women's sport and men's sport is the interaction we have with children who have their interests ever pulled away by things that don't really exist. This false sort of online world.
Yeah. 90% of the kids I'm taking next Friday have never been to a live sporting event ever.
Wow. Wow.
So, yeah, you know, and I'm taking a couple of autistic boys, which it'll be a struggle for them because it's going to be loud noises. I'm taking a couple of lads that think they're really streetwise and really cool, and I'm like, but you've never been out of your postcode area type thing, you know. So it is an experience, and I think I think rugby league's wicked for that. As I don't know if it's just because I'm in it and I love it, but I think it's a real good environment. Sometimes you can go to. I'm not saying football's but there's a different vibe, isn't there? It's a different vibe, and it's just getting them out, getting them off the TV, getting them off the PlayStations or whatever it is. And how many of them will take a phone, put it on Instagram and tag, I'm at Emerald Headingley Stadium and it
stays with you forever, doesn't it? I remember an experience of when I was at school as a young kid. I went to the old Wembley and I went to watch England against Georgia. And it was like a school trip, and we got tickets to watch England. It was amazing. It was kind of in the days sort of just pre, Sheringham and Shearer and Gazza was playing and all that sort of stuff. And it was a friendly, and it was a shit game. It was a shit. I couldn't even tell you the score. I couldn't tell you one thing that happened in the game. But it's not about the game, is it? It's about the smells. It's about the sights, the experience, the kind of just being there and seeing. And you're so inquisitive and curious as a kid. Curiosity didn't kill the cat, did it? It made the cat strong enough to go and fucking get its meals, to go and survive and get bigger and stronger. So that needs to be battered away, that old phrase. But then, I think it's about that. It's about understanding and engaging younger audiences, isn't it? Because, as we've just said, they're so obsessed with certain things, and not all of them, but this computer world, and like John said, you go into that sort of world, and it's so damaging, because then if you have that experience when you're a kid, you're always going to be inquisitive. I remember even years and years later, my first experience of, in my probably late 20s, 30s, going to watch Wilco and Flash at the Jungle, or going to like just all these mad experiences which I didn't have, being a southern fairy. You're still always going to have that in you. So the next generation can have that if they get a taste of it right now, which is what we kind of need to give them. It's the same, John, in your world. Will going into a coffee shop in 20 years time to just sit there and just watch the world go by drinking a coffee be a thing, because it is now and it always has been. But look how generations change.
Yeah, no.
I think it's a key time for kids at the moment.
It's a key time for everybody, because I believe that you have to go and do things. You have to attend sports games if you want sport to exist. You have to walk down a terrace and smell like freshly cut grass in a big stadium. You have to hear the roar of a try that scored, a goal that scored at a stadium that's full. You have to hear the moans and groans, from fans who are disgruntled with a team. You have to see the anguish on a player's face to face, not on TV. And all of these things are like the immersive experience that live sport can give, that no fucking thing else can ever give. It can't. You can't replicate. At the minute, you cannot replicate that feeling, Will, of being in a stadium and things happening and the joint energy of 10, 20,000 people all feeling this momentum and energy. You can't recreate that. And that's what's immersive and addictive to kids when they go there, and they hear it and feel it. And, I remember going to Wembley in 1996 and 1997 with my dad, and just being in awe of what I was like, I would have never have wanted to play rugby league if I hadn't watched those games. I just wouldn't have. It just struck me. I was like, wow, this is fucking cool. So I think it's great that we're getting people to go to the games, and I think it's amazing that you're getting some kids down there. But we need more of it, don't we? Just get. But
it's like you grab hold of a generation, don't you? Like these kids are 14, 15, 16-year-old boys. I'm taking one girl, I think, but the rest are boys. All disappointed that it's not my game, and I don't think it's because it's a generation where the men's and the women's isn't so dissimilar now. So to go and to watch a women's rugby league game versus a men's, they don't not know any different, because that would be naive of me to think that, but it's not as big as it was when we were 14, 15, where you're like, a men's or a women's game, you'd be like, a women's game? Even I would have been, no. I would have always preferred to go watch the men's. So I think it's really nice that they actually were slightly disappointed it wasn't my game, but also that the women's game isn't seen as a lesser entity to them. And that it were a perfect time for this generation of up-and-coming teenagers, where we can promote something that, it is... If you are a sport of rugby league, or you're a sport of Leeds Rhinos, or you're a sport of supporter, of St Helens, then why not promote it to that generation to come along? Put your Saints shirt on, put your Wigan shirt on, and get down and watch rugby league regardless of who it is, really, I think. So it's, how do you get that snowballing?
Yeah. Look, a couple more bits because we've kept you long enough, Danika. And we had John Dutton on. Wilco, you weren't here for this one, but a few weeks ago. And it was really interesting because, we were talking about, obviously, the World Cup being cancelled and the knock-on effect that that's going to have for the men's game, of course. But he made a great point, and, an obvious point to make, but the knock-on effect that it's going to have on the women's game and the wheelchair teams and stuff going forward, and all the prep that's been going on their sides and all the problems that they've already got with all these cancellations. How is that going to pan out, do you think, for the women's game? You mentioned about half an hour ago, Danika, you were sat next to Guy Mowbray and you were doing an event looking forward to this World Cup. The preparations for that started 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah. And for you as well, at 36, coming up 37, no more World Cups for you. Is this going to be the end for you? Is this going to be your last season? Have you thought that far ahead yet?
Yeah, I've definitely toyed with it. I was all set on last year. So 2018, I snapped my ACL. And the only reason I came back playing is because people told me I was too old and I should go into coaching. I've grown up with 3 brothers. I'm really stubborn. And I was like, I'm not finishing my career on an ACL. Not a chance. So I got back and so I think the Henley game was the 26th of May 18. And I made my return 27th of May 19. Having bear in mind, we don't get the support. So I had to go, I was meant to go NHS, but I ended up paying for my own operation to get my ACL done. And had it done a week after Ryan Hall, and I essentially raced Ryan Hall back without him knowing, and I made it within the same time frame as him. And I didn't want to go out on that, and I was like, so 19 I didn't get a full season, so 2020 I'm going to do my final season. I want to go out when I'm still decent. I don't want to go out being not picked or selected because my ego would be too damaged. And then COVID happened, so I was like, right, 2021 it is. And now I'm coming to the end of the season that was meant to be my final one. And I'm like, I can still keep going. Like, if you still love it and you still keep going at the level at the minute, I can just about keep up with the young ones. I've started at prop for the last few games for Leeds. And I'm thinking, if I'm still selected to start and I'm still getting my quality of minutes in, do I keep pushing? Because when it's over, and I'm not sure I'm ready for that to be filled yet. So there's a little bit of thinking I need to do. But again,
we'll tell you, don't chase the dream farewell, because I've had this conversation with him loads and with Flash as well. I'm the same as you, and I know you said a while ago you don't believe in fate, but I'd quite like the idea of someone who's put so much of their body on the line and all that commitment to their cause and to their sport that you get, some sort of nice farewell. Whereas John got booed off by the St Helens fans, they hated him. He went off to Toronto, the club fell apart, and so did his knee, and that was it. Good night.
Well, I wouldn't. Yeah. Now, thinking about it, I wouldn't mind going out on an injury, because you put like that old cliche thing, and I put my body on the line for the girls, like I do it for the girls. So it would be nice. But my biggest worry about the World Cup is that I know 2 or 3 of the girls in the World Cup that would have been selected this season were going to but retire and have babies, because they're at that point in their relationships and at their point in at that age. So in terms of a knock-on effect, so you take the likes of Amy Hardcastle, who's become quite a household name, who is a formidable force in the centres, who is probably the hardest runners, tacklers. She's just insane. I know that her and her partner want to have a baby. So does she now wait an extra year, train as hard as she can do, make the squad, be the best she can be, or does she stop now and have a child? And then, you've got 9 months out with that, and then you've got the extra 2 or 3 months post that to then come back. Where does she stand now? Because she's not paid to play, so therefore she's got no, alliances to the game. She doesn't. For me, that's the biggest worry, and that's what I mean. In the growth of the game, it's that side of things. And you've got girls that have probably booked time off work because they were getting paid this World Cup, and they will get paid obviously next year. But there was that 4 weeks of not having to worry about any cash, so they provisionally booked the time off work. So they're now kind of crawling back to their employees, going, "Actually, can you give me that 4 weeks back in November, October, November? Because I'm not going to earn any money from the Rugby League World Cup until next year." And there's those kinds of repercussions that you don't see. So it's not only the training pressures and the commitment pressures, but it's actually family and lifestyle. And that's the younger ones that are not fine, but the younger ones that are students and are super keen can. But the older generation, the ones that you need to keep, so the Carrie Roberts, the Amy Hardcastles, Emily Rudd, Shona Hoyle type people who are maybe thinking about stepping somewhere different in their lifestyle. How do you retain those? Because you need that experience, you need that quality. You can't go with a fresh-faced England squad for a World Cup, I don't think. And that's the problem, I reckon.
Wilco, I mean, picking up on that point in terms of, because Danika's probably at that stage trying to make a similar decision that you had to make over the last 18 months.
Yeah, it just doesn't. It's everyone is like running their own race, aren't they? Like I'm really cautious about giving advice about like retirement and finishing, because it's like, I remember listening to Gareth Ellis at Flash's wedding, who said it's the best thing I've ever done, retiring, like love it, it's just, my mind feels free. And then about 4 weeks later, he's fucking playing for Hull again, the wanker. So I got all excited about retirement. I was like, oh, it sounds great, this, you know, loving it. And then I seen him running out again. I was like, he's full of shit. But no, it's I don't know, I think if you enjoy doing it, keep doing it, and that's as simple as it is. I stopped enjoying it by the end of it, and that ultimately is it. It's easy for me because I was not enjoying it and getting paid. I was getting paid to do it and not enjoying it, which is actually, if you think about that, that's fucking really interesting, because I was like a prisoner to my job.
Yeah,
do you know
exactly.
what I mean?
Yeah,
I now my life revolves around the finances that come from this job, and I'm not really enjoying it that much. Well, when it's just a hobby, I think it's an easier decision whether to retire or not, and I'm sure Danika, you know, is.
Well, it's like we said earlier, isn't it? Like, I'm a teacher, so I get 6 weeks off. I've not had a 6-week holiday since 2015.
Yeah.
Because I played winter and league. So union and league, for back-to-back for about 3 seasons. But I've not had a summer off. So I've had the summer holidays, you know. Last year was probably eye-opening in the sense that I was like, oh, this is free time, because I wasn't playing, but equally wasn't going anywhere. You know, and I haven't been able to go anywhere on my summer holidays properly because I train Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. And I'm of the old school kind of, I commit to that Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday because I don't want to let the girls down. So do I want the freedom of having my holidays and having that free time and being able to book a flight and go off somewhere, especially next year when things are properly open, hopefully, touch wood, you know? Or I'm also a bit concerned that I do believe that in some really warped way, rugby league kind of saved me a little bit. Like 2015, I went through I broke up from a 13-year relationship. So I also had that kind of survival of throw myself into being England ready, and I've kind of used it as an excuse and a saviour, in the sense that I was busy getting fit and losing. I think I lost about 4 stone just so I could play rugby league for the World Cup and, you know, and play at the best of my ability. So it was a fine line between resting my laurels on loving rugby league for what it was versus I'm not enjoying it as much this year. Is it COVID? Is it because I'm older? Is it because I want to go and sit on a boat with my friends for the weekend in the Med and drink, you know, and not have to worry about letting the girls down on a weekend? So it's an accumulation of where I'm at in my life. Realistically, I don't think I want to admit that I need to retire, but it's that thing, innit? You wake up on a Monday. I play on a Sunday, and I wake up on a Monday morning, and I work in a school where sometimes I have to restrain the kids. Like, we have to restrain them and stop them going into crisis. You know, and your body aches from being smashed around, and then you actually jeopardizes your job and what you meant. I am paid to do, which I love doing. Like, I love my job. I love teaching, and you know, we're teachers don't get paid loads, but I actually do enjoy going to work. So, it takes me 2 days to recover at least, and then I'm back into training. And if you know Lois Forsell, you both know her. She's my head coach. She's a martyr. If we've not played very well at the weekend, we go into full contact on Tuesday and right all the wrongs. Yeah, and that's just, you know, when you're Caitlin Beavers and you're 19, enough. That's fine. When you're 36 and you've... yeah, exactly. But she is good, but she's got high standards.
Look, Danika, it's been really good having you on, and I know whether it's this season or going to be next year, I know you've got the playoffs to look forward to as well, so best of luck with them, and it won't be long, will it, before you're sitting on the beach or on that boat with those girls on the Med? We should get an invite to that, Josh. I mean, the girls on the Med and the beach sounds right up our sort of street. Weddings, festivals, you've got all that to look forward to as well, because, you know, you'll get your weekends back eventually, and give the kids a thick ear for us as well. Get them off those fucking computers and teach them a good lesson.
I'll play this exact clip for them in the classroom. This is at you guys.
Yeah. I will take respect, as long as there's no legal repercussions. We stand by everything we've just said.
They call me worse.
Danika, really good to have you on. Have a great few weeks for the end of the season. Wilco, see you soon. We'll have a next episode for you next week. Give us a little follow at Out of Your RL, and we will be seeing you, unfortunately, with Mark Flanagan in about 7 days' time. Bye-bye.